We know that we can count on the United States to uphold the international law-based order, freedom of navigation and overflight, and the sustainable use and development of maritime resources. But equally important, we look to the United States to promote peace, security, and prosperity. On our part, we will continue to work with China and other claimant states with the end in view of resolving the issues involving the West Philippine Sea through diplomacy and through dialogue. The Philippines' candidature for a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council for the term of 2027 to 2028 is premised on my country's long years of experience in building peace and forging new paths of cooperation. In this context, we are certainly concerned about rising tensions in the Taiwan Strait, just north of the Philippines. We urge all parties involved to exercise maximum restraint. Dialogue and diplomacy must prevail. We adhere to the One China policy and have consistently called for the peaceful resolution of their issues involving Taiwan. We understand that peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific region are also linked to the situation in the Korean Peninsula. And we are ready to play a constructive role in advancing a peaceful and denuclearized Korean Peninsula through confidence-building measures amongst the various stakeholders. On Russia and Ukraine, the Philippines urges all parties to continue adopting a peaceful means to maintain international peace and security. The Philippines has voted in favor of the 3 UN General Assembly resolutions on Ukraine. And at this point, let me discuss the various dialogue mechanisms in the region. We will continue to work towards strengthening ASEAN, particularly its dialogue partnerships with neighbors that uphold regional peace and security. We welcome the renewed engagement of the Quad along with the recent establishment of the AUKUS. These mechanisms should help prevent destabilizing actions in the region that go against international law. We think that these dialogue mechanisms and security arrangements should complement, not supplant, the ASEAN-centered regional security architecture that has been built over decades by the ASEAN and its member partners, as well as the existing network of bilateral security partnerships in the region. It's no surprise to anyone that the Philippines has some of these conflicts with the People's Republic of China. And the position that the Philippines takes is that we have no territorial conflict with China. What we have are China claiming territory that belongs to the Philippines. So this is the position we take, and with our American partners, we have promoted that position. We have also made it very clear to our friends in Beijing that this is the way we feel about it. And as a consequence of this challenge that we have, this diplomatic, this territorial challenge that we have, I'd like to point out that this is the first national election in the Philippines where foreign policy was an issue with the people. Generally speaking, in our experience, the foreign policy, the ordinary citizen, the ordinary voter, would say, well, foreign policy is not really our concern. Let the experts in government decide that. But when it happens that our fishermen are not allowed to continue with their livelihood, to fish in areas where they have fished for the last 30, 40 generations, then it becomes an issue right at the gut of our people. And that is where we find ourselves now.
I listened carefully to what you said in your remarks about the West Philippine Sea. And your recent stated position of the government in terms of the Permanent Court of Arbitration decision in 2016. So, given China's posture, which is in recent times usually not through grey-coloured vessels, that's warships, but through ships of other colours, sometimes Coast Guard vessels, and sometimes fishing fleets, and sometimes fishing fleets comprised of hundreds of vessels very close together. Looking ahead for the next couple of years, what would you ask our Chinese friends to do differently?
Well, what we have tried, I mean, in my view, nobody wants to go to war. The one thing we need to avoid is a shooting war. And I have always said that the fundamental principle that guides our foreign policy is peace. We talk about the economy. We say that we are in crisis. There are many things that we need to do. We have good plans for it. We are very optimistic about the future. But all of these things will be for naught if there is conflict in the region. Australia is certainly a strong partner in all of these actuations that we have been trying to endorse. In the case of the Philippines, it's clear that militarily there is no comparison between the Philippines and China in terms of capability, in terms of strength, military strength, should it come to that. However, we believe that the strength that we can apply will be from the partnerships, once again, that we have with countries like Australia, with our ASEAN members, with the rest of our friends and allies in the region. And that's why I think that ASEAN is going to have to play a stronger role in all of these discussions, and in trying to, again, keep the peace and slowly, but continue to engage China. Because once that engagement stops, then there is no progress. And then things could very easily deteriorate, and that is not what we want to happen. So we have tried, on a bilateral basis with China, although we maintain our position in terms of our maritime territories and their fishing rights, our economic zones, we have nonetheless tried to continue to engage China on that basis, on those subjects, but also engage China on other aspects. The people-to-people relationships, even the economic relationships that we have fostered with China, even some of the other exchanges that we have had in terms of education, in terms of cultural exchanges, in terms of all of the other things. I have always told my Chinese friends, and I said, let us not make our differences concerning maritime, like the baselines, the economic zones, etc. Let us not make that the defining element of our relationship. Because if that is the only if that will be the defining relationship of the defining part of our relationship, then we are really at a standstill. And hopefully if we make progress in other areas, this will help. I always quote that the way that the United States, for example, and China came together was through ping pong. If you remember, it was because the Chinese ping pong captain played with the United States ping pong captain, and they became friends, and ping pong went to the United States. And this led to Richard Nixon going to China and establishing diplomatic relations. So perhaps that's something. So we must explore everything. We must explore every avenue. We do it G2G, government to government.
Basketball? Could we do the basketball?
Basketball could be could be another. But in any single way, we never know. You never know where the progress will come. So you have to try everything. You cannot discount anything and limit yourself to just the ways of negotiating, the traditional ways of dealing with this kind of problem. We have to be, to an extent, I would say that we have been successful and that we have slowly begun to redefine, or rather, no, not redefine, but to add to that relationship in other aspects of diplomatic life, of political life within the region. And I think that has happened because of, again, the strong partnerships that we have with the other countries, our allies around the region. And that way, that united front that we can present, I think is a very, very important aspect of that engagement.
In your speech before, you also made positive reference to the Quad and AUKUS, and that follows, I think, from the logic you've just explained about those beyond the Philippines on whom you can rely for security policy support. Your reflections on how the Quad, for example, aids to strategic stability in the region, that would be of interest, I'm sure, to this audience. And within that, your view and vision of your future relationship with Japan.
Well, the Quad certainly is another one of those aggrupations that we feel are going to be, it's a partnership between countries that I think, again, if we were to move as one country alone, it would not be as effective as if we approach the problem as part of these political, diplomatic aggrupations, even military aggrupations that we have put together. So that's again something that is fundamental to the way we try to approach the problems that we are facing vis-a-vis the maritime disputes that we have. I have to remind people that these maritime disputes are not only with China. We also have within ASEAN some disputes with our other member countries. So, but in my view, this applies as well. So these kinds of partnerships, I think, are very, very important. Now, Japan, certainly, I had a meeting with the Prime Minister Kishida, just the other day, and naturally, I think it's no surprise to anyone that they are terribly, terribly concerned, not only of China. But because of the recent events, we have focused on the Taiwan situation, the visit of the United States House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, sort of highlighted once again the simmering tensions that, as I said, were beneath the surface, but now have surfaced out into the open. But if you remember, if we go back maybe 6 months, it was North Korea that we were all very worried about. And it is exactly that, that I think that aspect of it that Japan is also worried about, because when you have missiles flying over in your skies and into the sea, it's not very surprising that Japan will be alarmed. And again, that is part of the relationship that we have between ally countries. Japan is an ally. Japan is a friend and a partner in many, many ways, again. And that, again, we feel that we should strengthen that and continue to promote that partnership. The difference between right now, anyway, between the conflicts or the disagreements between China and the rest of the countries around the area, and Korea has threatened to use nuclear weapons. And that would be a complete disaster. And that there is no way that the Philippines will be somehow exempt from that sort of conflict. And it's very interesting to watch what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. And it's very worrisome, because if there is a possibility that nuclear weapons suddenly become, even tactical nuclear weapons, not strategic nuclear, but tactical nuclear weapons become part of that equation, then we will see the normalization of nuclear weapons and nuclear weapons will become conventional weapons. And perhaps that will encourage other nuclear powers to exercise that nuclear option, which, as we all know, is going to be is really end of world scenario. So, to take the point a little further, we are beyond the Cold War. I do not subscribe to the spheres of influence like we had during the Cold War. So we see that nuclear weapons should not be. We should abandon the idea of nuclear weapons as deterrence. And really work towards bringing down the stockpiles of nuclear weapons in the world, and with, of course, the ideal result of them being taken away and us not having, no one having any nuclear weapons. Now, that's easier said than done. That's easier said than done because each country that has nuclear weapons have a different view on the subject and feel that they must have it because they have enemies that they feel that need to be deterred. So that is, I think, where we go, if we take it as far, that's as far as we can take the analysis of the conflict. It's something that it is something that we pray for, but the way towards that end certainly is not clear, as there are so many varied and different views on the subject vis-a-vis the individual situations of those countries that do have nuclear stockpiles. So this is the thinking that we have developed. And this is the thinking that we have tried to espouse to our friends and neighbors.